Okay.
Okay, I'll call the Thompson Planning and Zoning Study Committee on subdivision regulations to order. Turn it over to Tara.
Okie dokie. So let me share the screen. You know, when you guys see that?
Yeah.
Okay. So we will continue apace. I gotta move this bar. I don't know why this. Just do some scrolling here. Okay, so as we have been going, we will review this, stopping for substantive comments. So I'm going to skip anything that's just like typos and anything. Here we go. We'll expand them all. Why these aren't automatically expanded, but that's okay. So we'll skip typos and formatting. We're just going to go through substance, reading the sidebar comments to see if there's anything that needs further discussion and further notes made. Oh, let me turn on track changes too. Yep, they're on.
What page is that, Tara?
It looks like page 31.
Really? Oh, I had some things I wanted to, anyway.
Well, if it's stuff that was from previous, just like we talked this afternoon, Alvin, that's going to end up going into a memo at the end when we bring all this to the full commission in regular meetings.
Oh, okay.
But for now, we're going to just try to move forward week to week. And then maybe one last session at the end if we're able to go quickly to go over any remaining comments before we put it into that memo. I think that'll probably be the most efficient. All right, so just briefly, and again, this is actually going to be Article 4 now because we moved the definitions back up.
26, that's what it is.
Okay, so here is a question right off the bat from Marla in basic requirements. Is there an application form provided by the PZC that is required to be submitted as a basic requirement? If yes, then that needs to be added. That application form should contain or be accompanied by a statement by the property owner that grants the PZC, its agents, and when improvements are to be made to the property that are subject to future ownership and or maintenance by the town, the public works director, the right to enter onto the property at reasonable times for the purpose of inspection and or the taking of samples as may be required. Here comes Ray. As may be required by these regulations. And that is sort of a dual comment. What Marla had noticed in another section was the way something was worded was essentially that submitting an application was equivalent to consent for the town to enter the property. She thought that was messy and possibly indefensible, and I agree with that. And also, she's pointing out that here in basic requirements, it doesn't actually even refer to the application itself. So I would generally concur that we should be referring to the application itself as a basic requirement. Although, as I note here, the requirement for statement of right of entry is a good one, but properly belongs under the list of requirements in the application as opposed to the basic requirement itself. Does that make sense? Let me know if it doesn't, because we want everything to make sense.
You want to read that again, Tara, please?
Yes.
I don't, yeah.
Of
Which
course.
one is it? What letter alphabet is it that you're reading?
So we're on Article 4, Section 1, letter, sort of letter A, but not really, because she's making a reference to something that isn't there. So I'll read it again. Is there an application form provided by the PZC that is required to be submitted as a basic requirement? So the answer to that question is yes, an application is a basic requirement. Marla's point is that here in section 1, basic requirements, it doesn't actually refer to the application. So this further explication is her reasoning behind why it should be there. And then she further goes, where are we here? That application form should contain or be accompanied by a statement by the property owner that grants the PZC, its agents, and when improvements are to be made to the property that are subject to future ownership and or maintenance by the town, the Public Works Director, the right to enter onto the property as at reasonable times for the purpose of inspection and or the taking of samples as may be required by these regulations. And then she provides some further backup for that. See my comment for proposed subsection 2, subsection B below. The only place where a right of entry is referenced is in proposed Article 2, Section 8, bonding for improvements, subsection G, release of surety. And she essentially commented there that the way that was phrased essentially implied that the application itself was the consent. She says, and I would agree, that that is not clear enough. So my response to these sort of two married comments is A, yes, since an application is a part of the basic requirement, we should refer to it in section 1 here. But my secondary point is having a written consent from the owner submitted with the application is actually a requirement of the application, not the basic requirements. I know that that is a confusing way to state that.
Yeah, that is a confusing way to state that.
Yeah, I know, and I'm trying to think of a way to make it clearer. So here in the basic requirements, it's talking about stuff that is integral to the planning process for submitting a subdivision application before you even get to the application point, right? So let's look at these. Each lot so this is me talking to the applicant. Each lot in a subdivision shall conform to the dimensional requirements for the district. Boundaries shall be of inland wetlands shall be determined by a certified soil scientist. Maintenance of views shall be encouraged. So all of these things are not really a part of the application. It's saying that before you even submit your application, you've got to consider these things. So a written statement of consent would actually be a part of the application. So while I would say that we need to refer to the fact that submitting an application is a basic requirement, when we get further down in this section, we're going to describe what the components of that application actually are. So that's why I'm saying that statement of consent should be a component of the application and should be described under that rather than under these sort of overarching things that the applicant has to consider as they are compiling their application. Is that clearer?
It's a little bit clearer, but I think the consent should be actually a separate piece of paper so that there is no confusion.
Yes, and I agree with you there. What I'm saying is that separate piece of paper is one of the many pieces of paper that comes with the application, because the application is, you know, the 1 or 2 page application form itself, which has very basic skeletal information. The application also has all those things, the plans, and
then they would have to literally sign a different piece of paper giving the permission.
correct.
Okay,
Correct.
okay, that's a little clearer to me. Thank you.
Yeah, it's terribly difficult to describe
Yes.
But, okay, so does everybody else get that?
I think I did.
Okay, all right. So let's see, what's next here? I don't know why this is concealing the comments in this way. Some of these, all right, what's here? All right, so these are again, some minor language tweaks. I'm apparently going to have to expand each of these comments separately. So this again is a comment from Marla regarding net buildable area, which we briefly touched on in the definitions as something that the commission is going to have to review more fully. And let's read Marla's comments, although I think we're going to still end up punting this down the road a little bit. But I repeatedly asked the planner to ensure that the language for net buildable area be maintained in the subdivision regulations as was previously provided in the zoning regulations amended on 9/24, amended to 9/24/2012. In other words, the ones that we replaced in 2020. Net buildable area was removed in the most recent amendments to the zoning regs. I missed this significant change due to the extensive modifications of those zoning regs. I recommend this paragraph be kept and its definition not be deleted as proposed in the definitions article. So the net buildable area thing, and again, I think we're going to end up pushing this down just a little bit till we have the full commission, but essentially it's saying that your 40,000 square, let's use the 40,000 square feet because that's the minimum acreage in most of the town. Your 40,000 square feet isn't just 40,000 square feet. It's got to be 40,000 square feet that does not include certain types of ground, most notably in this case, wetlands, but could also include ledge or some other sort of categories. And the net buildable area is sort of a complex way of describing that. We took it out of the zoning regulations based on feedback we had from some of the local engineers who do a lot of work with us, that it is essentially that it's unnecessarily complicated. And Janet Blanchette provided me some further feedback, which is that the concern is legitimate, that you don't want, especially with the smaller parcels being allowable, that you don't want extra encroachment into the wetlands, but that is simply handled by saying, you know, that the minimum, the dimensional requirements are the minimum as described, exclusive of wetlands and water courses, so that it is clearer that you can't infringe. Does that make sense?
I'm sorry, Tara. Would you do that again, please? Sometimes I need it. I'm sorry. Sometimes I need it a couple of times.
Yeah, don't be sorry,
Got
Jane,
it.
because these are complex.
Yes.
And sometimes they're complex.
Well, I'm
because
looking
that's
at it. I'm
ahead.
sorry. I'm looking at it that I'm coming to you. I, want to do something. I want to be able to get it clear in my, so that I understand it. And if I'm not quite getting it, I'm sure that there's other people that are coming forward that aren't going to be getting it. So that's why I would like you to do it again, please.
I'm sorry to interject. I have the definition up on my screen if you want me to share it with you, that has from the zoning regulations.
You mean the one that we took out from the old zoning regs?
Yeah, but it's in the new zoning regs too. I'm not really understanding what it's in there. It's in the definitions.
Net buildable area is in there?
Of course it is.
It shouldn't be, because we removed the concept from the zoning regs.
It's still in there. It's in
Well, okay. Knock
I'd
yourself
like Yeah, I'd
Yeah.
like to hear it, Brian, please.
I'll just show it to you on screen.
Yeah,
Just-
I've got to flip this over. Hold on.
You can just you see it. I think it's easier to see it.
Okay, you should be able to share now, Bri.
So you can just understand it. Total continuous lot area excluding areas of slopes. I mean, you guys can read it.
Yeah.
So the language that is in the subdivision regulator, or at least the language that Marla referred to, was very complex.
Yeah, this made it much more clear. I specifically remember this actually in the definitions. That's why I knew it was in there. Because this makes it very clear on what net buildable area is and what it excludes.
Yeah, I agree. It's much clearer.
So here's where I think the rub is that,
You can share your screen again. Everyone
Yeah.
all set with that?
okay. Here's where I think the rub is, because I actually thought we had purged it entirely, because the concept isn't referred to in the body of the regs. So somehow we kept that definition without it being referred to conceptually in the regs.
That is correct.
So we could pull that in, but it would be sort of the same thing here. We're not referring to net buildable area. I guess I don't object to pulling it into the definitions based on that, but what is that tying to? And then Janet's suggestion, and let me see if I'm going to stop
I mean,
share
I'm
again.
going to dare say, isn't this reasonably inferred though already? Because you come here, you got a subdivision, our minimum acreage or square footage is 40,000. And one would ask, oh, okay, well, what portion of that am I allowed to build on? And you could say, oh, well, excludes X, Y, and Z if you go to net buildable area, right? I mean, is that reasonably inferred? Right?
I think it is to people who know, right? But and in the case of subdivision, the people making applications probably know more than, say, an average person who is building a single house on a single house lot, right?
Yeah.
So I think that's the issue there, and that what what Marla doesn't want to run into, as I understand it, is people essentially making applications that she has to reject
Of course,
because they don't understand
of course.
that the 40,000 square feet is your minimum acreage
Yeah,
to
Well,
build, but that
sure.
minimum acreage may in fact have other limitations.
Sure. Well, I mean, if I can bring it back up on the screen, but it's the minimum of 40,000. And it actually, the other four items are exclusions. So you would increase that number of 40,000. So it's not slopes in excess of 25%, ledge outcrops, so on and so forth. It would exclude those areas. So actually it could be larger. So it's actually helping the situation if I'm totally understanding that properly, which I think I am.
I think you are too. What's the date today? It's the 17th, right?
17th.
Net buildable area def is in zoning regs. Is
Page 113, Tira.
yeah. And so let me add, based on what we just saw, that definition, do we agree that that is expressed with clarity and reasonably, so that if we pull the concept at least into the definitions here, that communicates what those exclusions are?
I believe it does.
Yeah, I believe it does too, but I mean, what is the objection to leaving it there?
So the objection to leaving it there, I think, is the way it was phrased previously. Is that it was very complex and created the idea of a building polygon. I think it was the building polygon that was kind of objected to by the engineers, that it created a specific shape that the lot had to adhere to.
Oh, I mean, I didn't get that at all, but I'm new to this game. So what Brian brought up on the screen was very clear to me. Is that what we're talking about taking out or leaving in?
Restoring essentially.
Restoring, okay, that, because I think that makes it much clearer to the average person, since I am the average person and this is a new ballgame for me.
Right. Ray, I see you've got your hand raised.
He's muted.
Where did he go?
I don't know. Let me see if I can restore this. Yeah, Ray, if you've still got your hand raised and you can unmute, I think *6 if you're on your phone.
Hmm.
Well, I mean, don't feel bad if you have to just break in when you're able
Oh,
to.
there he, okay, there he's
Okay,
showing up
there we go.
again.
It's interesting. All right, well, Ray, if you can either type in the chat or if you're able to get yourself unmuted, just let us know. We can go back to whatever it is when you're able to come in. Okay, so the net buildable area definition in zoning regs is in zoning regs and is expressed with clarity. Is that what we agree?
Yes,
I would
Okay.
agree.
Can be added back in consensus. Okay. All right. Scrolling ahead. All right, she's just got a request for legal review on the commission may require the applicant to prepare an impact statement evaluating the effect on the environment and estimated traffic on the site, waste disposal, surface drainage, water supply, and other issues. If the commission feels that the community has a significant interest, the commission may request a report from the state environmental review team. So Marla is suggesting to run this by council. For whatever it's worth, all of this is going to be run by council once we have a complete 90% final draft. And also this is carried over from our existing subdivision regulations. So this is what has been in place since at least 2008. Now, I don't know if that means it was or wasn't reviewed by council at that time. I assume that it was, but I presume that this has passed muster at least once. I don't think there's anything actionable here. Let's see if this is Ray texting me. Computer says host is not allowing participants to unmute themselves. All right. Thanks, Ray. Let me see if I can figure out what's wrong there. Where's my taskbar? I gotta stop sharing first again. That's weird, Ray, because when I bring up the security allowances, it says participants are allowed to unmute themselves. So you should be okay. That's weird. It's definitely not something I have set up. I guess keep trying or just use the chat box if you've got a comment, if you can. Or maybe dial back in.
Yeah, I try to dial back in, try to fix that. That's what I would do, Ray.
All right, so where were we here?
I don't even know what an area regulation is in the town of Thompson.
Exactly.
I don't know what that is.
I think that is just a typo that got carried over.
Yeah.
So obviously refers to zoning regs.
Zoning
Yeah.
regulations, yeah.
I think if anything, it should just strike the word area, but again, I think it's reasonably inferred that any subdivision or re-subdivision confirms the town of Thompson regulations in general.
Indeed, but as we've often said, common sense isn't always common. So that's why stuff like that is in there. Okay, so okay, here's coming in again. I had to minimize who I can see on the screen. So if anybody can tell me if they can see that Ray is able to mute or unmute himself, let me know.
Yep. Yeah, it looks
right.
like Ray's all set.
Look, yeah, it looks like he unmuted himself.
Cool.
Yeah, I don't know what was going on. I have a question before you go on too far. So with that 40,000 square feet, if there's any wetlands, the property has to be bigger to accommodate for the wetlands.
You have the option to be
Right.
bigger, yeah.
Right, because although technically, legally, it is possible to build in a wetland, you've got to go through all kinds of hoops and extra costs. So, but just on a basic, if you're making an application that has not shown whatever you would need to do in order to build in a wetlands or whatever, then the Wetlands Commission would reject that. And also, we don't want to encourage building in wetlands. So, to say that the 40,000 square feet is the minimum area exclusive of any wetlands or whatever other types are referenced in that definition essentially means yes, if there's wetlands on your property pretty much has to be bigger than the 40,000 square feet in order for you to be able to build on it.
Correct, okay.
All right, so now we're down to section 2, design and construction standards. Okay. Under supervision and inspection, construction of all required improvements shall be carried out to the specifications and under the supervision of the Director of Public Works for the town of Thompson, who shall be authorized to take materials, samples, cores, and tests as deemed necessary to determine compliance with these regulations. The commission may require the applicant at the applicant's sole expense to have such tests performed and certified by a professional engineer licensed to practice in the state of Connecticut. And here's that sentence that we were talking about before. In addition, the commission or its appointed representative shall have free access to the construction work at all times. Okay, so here we've got 2 comments under here, one of which we've already partly dealt with. But the first one being required improvements. According to Marla here, what does required improvements mean? If they are for streets, drainage systems, land, or other changes whose maintenance and or ownership are to be transferred to the town, then say that. If it is more than that, then specify what other construction activities are within the supervision of the DPW director. So to me, that this sentence implies that the improvements they're referring to are in fact those which are public improvements. B, would you agree with that?
Yeah, I just want to, in my opinion, I think the word required should just be struck and say construction of all improvements shall be carried out to the specifications and under the supervision of the Director of Public Works, because the word required is confusing matters, where we want anything that you do that it's improving the town items, I'll just say items, we want the DPW director to be involved. So everything. The word
Okay.
required is confusing the matter.
How about the idea, is this only referring to public improvements? What is DPW actually inspecting? In your, I mean, if you were, so you are a construction guy, if you were constructing a subdivision, what would you expect
Yeah,
a
so
local director of public works would be looking at?
so any details that are also part of the appendix of this document or any regulation, such as paving specifications or underground drainage structures or just general stuff that relate to utilities, that would again imply that someone else is looking at that and would need to approve that, right? Kind of like the Madison Avenue project. It's you're laying out a cul-de-sac that needs to be reviewed by the Department of Public Works because that street will become an approved street for them to pave. They're going to evaluate the curbing, the drainage structures, and the utility. And yeah, that's construction of all improvements shall be carried out to the specifications under the subdivision. So that's the way I view it.
Yeah, and even as you were saying that, actually, I was thinking about Madison Avenue, and I was actually thinking about, this, our attempt to incentivize private roads, right? So a private road is not a public improvement, but it would still need inspection. So yes, I agree with you. All improvements, regardless of whether they are going to be publicly
I'm saying
accepted or
at
not.
least it this way is not limiting to us, right? Again, the word required, it's like, okay, well, what is required? It just begs to ask a question, right? Where the word before it says all. All right, well,
And why not access improvements? That's pretty straightforward.
Yeah, but that limits us again to something that you see. And I think certain improvements could be underground.
Yeah, but the director of public works wouldn't look at that. His concern is really access, roads. The
Yeah, but
building official would be concerned about underground conduit.
well, that's true too.
Yeah, I was that Randy that was stating that?
No,
I think it was Alvin.
Alvin, okay, I kind of agree with what Alvin just said.
Randy, did you have something to add there?
well, I was just thinking, if you have a drainage that goes under the road, through a culvert or whatever, wouldn't the director of public works want to, approve that?
I would think so, right? Because it is, well, again, going back to Madison Avenue, drainage is one of the problems there, right?
Yeah, and I know that Rich looked at those structures when he was there, and though underground, it does affect his accesses to
Yeah.
Alvin's point, right? So I just feel like unlimiting is probably a better way to go.
Oops. What did I
Yeah,
just do?
I agree with Brian on that, just getting rid of the required.
Yeah, I wonder if though, and again, to Alvin's point, if we should expand this a little further, and the sentence is kind of a mess. I have to fix the sentence regardless, to reference both the director of public works and the building inspector, because Alvin brings up a good point that some of
Agree.
these things may not actually be.
Yep. Totally agree with that statement. Totally agree with that.
Yeah.
That covers both bases.
Yep.
I mean, if you're asking me, do I think we're going too far with some of this stuff? Sure. But I'd rather have it that way than a limiting factor.
Well, the only thing I would say about are we going too far, and I'm not talking about this provision here particularly, I'm just talking in general, is what we don't ever want to do is add layers of
Yeah.
bureaucracy or function that do not actually achieve the goals that they're after, A, or B, that we can't actually accomplish.
Yeah.
And I think that we discovered things like that in both the zoning regs rewrite and in our first pass through here. Like, why is this even in here? This isn't even in the commission's authority, or this isn't even something that the director of public works would ever look at. Why are we saying it's a requirement if it's never going to happen? So that would be the only reason I would say to caution against that. I don't think that's the case here. I think here, if DPW and or the building inspector have a role to play, then those roles should be mentioned.
Mhm.
But here is that sentence that we spent a little time on before. This is the only place where right to entry is mentioned. In addition, the commission or its appointed representative shall have free access to the construction work at all times. That's a statement in these regulations. And
Isn't
both,
it-
both Marla and I believe that that is a little bit too far, that we can't just say, you give me permission and have it be so. You've got to say that you've given me permission in order to enter your property.
Yeah, but it's under construction, and if the permit is not signed off, we do have the right as the town
Right. I mean,
to
that's,
walk in there and say, hey, I'm here to do an inspection. Right? I mean, that's just construction. I can't deny any inspector from any authority the right to come on the property, right?
or commission members, anyone.
Yeah.
Well, so that's why we were saying a part of the application needs to be a statement of consent to enter, right?
Yeah, that's what I said earlier. It has to be separate and it should be totally separate so they understand what they're signing off on.
Right, and again, B, because you are in the construction business, and to a certain extent, subdividers are gonna fall more into that category, but even so.
Yeah.
It just clarifies any confusion. If you have it literally separate that they're signing off on it, so they can't come back and say, oh, I didn't understand that.
Yeah. So I missed that. I joined late to the meeting. I do apologize to that. So what we're doing there, if I'm understanding that comment correctly, is during the application process, there's like this fine print that gives us the ability to, complete what the sentence says, free access, and they're consenting to that, and that's as a separate document.
Yes, that's what I'm saying. So there
Yeah.
is no confusion.
Yeah, all right.
And
Yeah,
of course,
I'm
at
cool with that.
reasonable times, they're not, you're not going to show up at 3 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah, of course, of
Yeah,
course. Yeah.
But
yeah.
it has to be, I believe that it has to be a separate piece so they know what they're signing and what they understand. And that way it eliminates any confusion and they can't come back and say, well, you didn't tell me this.
Yeah.
So I think that's the way that should be done.
Yeah, I just, I don't know the document where that lives, but I do agree with the logic of that.
Yeah, it's for me, it's a matter of getting rid of any confusion and everybody understanding and all being on the same playing field.
Is that just going to be part of the subdivision application?
Yes,
See?
that's what I'm suggesting. So what Marla had suggested is adding that as a basic requirement. But as we discussed before you came in, the basic requirements are more like the mental prep work that the developer does before he submits the application. So I'm suggesting that that form will be a form that is a requirement of the application. And I just left a note to myself in the sidebar that in the appendix where we have samples of the forms that people should expect to be filling out, that will be one of those sample forms.
Yep,
So we'll have to
okay.
create that form for consent.
I
Yes,
like that. Sounds
yes,
good.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that free access is throughout the document somewhere. I mean,
I don't think it's in there that often. I think it's here, and I think it's refers to something in bond. It's referred to once in the bonding section.
yeah,
But it's
So
it's not like understood particularly throughout.
Just so I'm clear, so we're striking this sentence and just adding it to the application form.
Yes.
Okay, very good.
Yeah. Okay. What was it? All right, this was one I thought we had to look at. This is under C, building lots. And I'm looking at, oh, this is actually a carryover from one of my older comments. So let's read the whole paragraph. Proposed building lots shall be of such shape, size, location, and topography that the buildings can be constructed reasonably, and so they can be occupied and used for building purposes without danger to the health and safety of the occupants and the public. Any lot which is found to be unsuitable for occupancy and building by reason of water or flooding conditions, unsuitable soil, topography, ledge rock, shallow depth to bedrock, or other conditions shall be combined with another lot or lots that are suitable, which may result in a reduction of the total number of lots, or shall be designated as open space. No lot so designated by the commission shall be considered for approval until a grading plan meeting the requirements of Article 4, Section 4E has been submitted. proposed building lots shall be designed and arranged to make best use of the natural terrain, avoiding unnecessary regrading, and to preserve substantial trees, woods, and inland wetlands. So my comment on that, and this goes back to our first pass through, was that if the lots have to be combined or designated as open space, then there is no purpose to this sentence, because you've either already combined it with an existing buildable lot, or you've said it's open space. Once it's open space in perpetuity. So there is no circumstance under which a lot designated as unbuildable by the commission shall be considered for approval, right? We've already given them their two options. So I would recommend striking that, unless somebody sees a reason why we would keep it. And again, I'm gonna, on this construction stuff, I'm leaning very heavily on you, on Lenke, on Randy's experience, on Poplawski when he's able to come in.
So basically what Marla's saying is the same thing. It becomes a moot point.
Well, that's actually not Marla's comment, that she had copied my older comments.
Oh,
over
okay,
and
all right. So yeah, because it
Yep.
does. Yeah, it does. It's moot.
That's what I think. B, what do you think here?
I'm rereading the whole thing. Just to make sure I got this there. So my first reaction is the phrase open space.
Yeah.
I mean, you can, I think there's two definitions of open space, and it's how it's in the deed of the property. You can have open space and still build on it, right? But then there's open space that is just, like you said, it's just open space. Like you can go two different ways with that. So maybe I'm mixing and matching topics here, but no lot so designated by the commission shall be considered for approval until a grading plan meeting the requirements of such article is submitted. No lot so designated by the commission shall be considered for approval until a grading plan is submitted.
So the only way that would make that the highlighted sentence would make sense to me is if you're adding a third option, because open space is a specific land use and we address it throughout this document. We define it, right?
Yeah.
And in the context of this document, open space is open space, full stop. And combining a lot, obviously, if you're combining a lot, now it's a part of another lot. This came up actually just this week with Marla, where prior assessors had declared lots unbuildable. So to me, this is, if you want to keep this highlighted sentence, the prior sentence should be this. Any lot which is found to be unsuitable for occupancy and building by reason of water or flooding conditions, unsuitable soil, topography, ledge rock, shallow depth to bedrock, or other conditions, shall be combined with another lot or lots that are suitable, which may result in a reduction of the total number of lots, or shall be designated as open space, or shall be designated an unbuildable lot.
Yes, I was gonna say that instead of open space, have it just non-buildable.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah, that's where I want to
Yeah.
go.
Yeah,
That's-
open space is, no, I think what Ray just said, absolutely, unbuildable.
See, open
But
space,
we can have all three.
open
We can have all
space,
three options.
open space is land set aside.
Yeah, it's land
Correct.
set
Yeah.
aside. Yeah.
Right. So,
Non-buildable.
I've seen non-buildable land become buildable. So-
yes,
we
and in
do-
fact, we just did that this week, and it was a totally legit thing because it was just an assessor's choice to render a lot unbuildable. It was a 9-acre lot. The lot should never have been, but they did it in order to reduce the taxation on the owner because there was no plan. It was like it was kooky. So no lot designated as unbuildable. And that, I think, fixes it. So let's read the whole thing over again.
Are we taking out open space, the word open space?
Well,
Well-
I think that's still an open question, because I
Yeah,
think you still
yeah.
have the option of saying in your plan, if you're the applicant, saying, well, forget about it, I'm just going to designate it as open space and nobody will build on it. So let's see how it reads. Any lot which is found to be unsuitable for occupancy and building by reason of water or flooding conditions, unsuitable soil, topography, ledge rock, shallow depth to bedrock, or other conditions shall be combined with another lot or lots that are suitable, which may result in a reduction of the total number of lots, or shall be designated as open space, or shall be designated an unbuildable lot. So there are three options there. We can take out open space. We do have provisions for open space elsewhere.
But open space is always an option.
Yeah, because it can be used as a buildable land down the road if that contractor or developer wants to use it. We have some areas in this town where it's considered open space. And if it gets sold or whatever,
Absolutely.
so boom, they can come in and say, okay, I got 9 acres here. I can put in 4.5, 4 houses out of the 9 acres, 4 buildable lots in an open space. Unless, like we were saying about, what determines by inland wetlands, which we use them as a barometer, if you want, so to speak, is okay. If the wetlands that is so-called considered certain times of the year or certain years, there's a 10-year cycle, that piece of land could be dry as a bone. Then all of a sudden we get a lot of rain like we have been, and it stays wet. So it's not buildable. That's where the question comes in. So what are we going to determine? Open space, if it's considered open space and it's still buildable with no other inland wetlands, and I'm looking at it as if I'm going to go in there and start digging the holes to put the houses in, and I'm going down 8 to 9, 10 feet to put a foundation in, and the ground is good, it's buildable. Because your test holes, your perk tests and your test holes and everything determine if you can do it.
Okay, so what I'm hearing here is that the consensus to me seems to be that we're not going to have the 3 options for these wonky lots. It's going to be combine or designate unbuildable, take out open space. Is that what I'm hearing?
Okay, let's, on this open space, I'm thinking back to 490 open space. Does that mean they'd have to have a 3-acre lot that they're setting aside, or could they just have an unbuildable half-acre that they're adding on to another lot?
That's why I think we ought to take out open space.
Yeah,
Yes,
I
so
think
it's gonna
this
get
is,
confusing.
yeah, I think this is a separate consideration of open space. And we already have different kinds of consideration of open space, right? In the subdivision regulations, later on, when we get to the section on open space, that's 20% minimum of your plot
Correct.
designated in perpetuity. Nobody can ever touch it. PA 490, as we know, is not permanent. It is just a temporary assessment reduction. That is an impermanent open space designation. So if the point is that the 2 types of open space could be confused by this statement, then I would say, yes, let's take it out.
I'm concerned that it would be confusing to leave that there. I don't have a recommendation what to use for different wording to achieve the same point, but I think having open space there is
Okay,
going to be confusing.
that seems to be where everybody's headed. So I'm gonna just strike this here.
Plus in a subdivision, the lots shouldn't be big enough for open space if they're going to 40,000 square feet anyway.
Well, they don't have to be as small as 40,000 square feet. They could be. You could have a subdivision
Right.
with 5-acre lots.
Mhm.
you know, it's not likely, but you could. I mean, a developer generally wants to maximize his profit by having smaller lots, but you could have one with larger.
And we have the right to say you're gonna dedicate X amount of open space there, right?
It is a requirement that at least 20%.
20%, right? That's the number we gave, right?
Yeah,
Okay,
that's
so-
that's the minimum for a conventional subdivision, and then there are options for what the conservation subdivisions are, where they get to have even smaller lots, but they have to give more open space. That's the trade-off.
Right, in the subdivision, does the open space have to be all contiguous, or could there be one area? We'll say you're looking at 40,000 square feet, you got one section that's 30,000 square feet in one area, and another place in the subdivision is an acre that may be unbuildable. To reach that 20%, does it have to be all contiguous, or can it be a couple of 3 plot parts in a 50-acre subdivision?
Well, it's, of course, it's much later in this section, and I think the open space stuff is something that we're going to talk about in real detail. Carolyn and I, one of
Yeah,
the last things Carolyn did before she passed was work on that with me. I off the top of my head, without scrolling down to it, because it'd take forever,
I
I
have an
believe
answer
there
for you.
is. Go ahead.
I have an answer for you. So in our new zoning regulations, the word dedicated location is in the definition. So open space says land set aside for parks, playgrounds, active or passive recreation, or conservation purposes on any subdivision plan, but not including unbuilt land on any lot not so designated. Open space shall be dedicated in a location approved by the commission and regulated in accordance with the applicable provisions of these regulations. So I think it's in a very particular location and not broken up into various areas.
100 acres.
At least
What was
according
that?
to our new zoning regulations.
Yep. And I think that you'll see that more or less echoed in the subdivision regulations in the language for open space from the first go round. And we'll get to that, you know, we're not going to get to that tonight because all of the stuff in this section is your substantive stuff. So it's all going to take longer to discuss. But I expect that when we get to that we're going to be talking about those concepts a lot to make sure that they express exactly what we intend and think is favorable for the town.
I'm just gonna toss this out here for C. Do we want to have a sentence at the end that just says for open space, whatever requirements, please see the definition? I don't know if I'm muddying the waters. I'm just tossing that out there.
That's my feeling, Brian, because open space is not a building lot, right?
Yeah, that's,
And-
I would
and-
agree with that. I would agree with that.
Plus, we have to have a separate for open space and then open space for the 490, because that's gonna have a different definition.
Right, and the 490 stuff, and I know we're juggling documents
Yeah.
here. The 490 stuff does not go in this document at all. The 490 stuff is, once that
Yeah,
final
CDM.
language is adopted, it goes into the Plan of Conservation and Development. That's the role for this commission. And then the Board of Selectmen has to approve it. And then once the Board of Selectmen approves those recommendations, an ordinance will go into the Code of Ordinance describing the conditions for P490 open space classification, because that's not permanent. This stuff in the subdivision regulations is dealing with the permanent uses of the land.
Yep.
So it's not exactly apples to oranges, but they're definitely different streams. It doesn't help that we're actually working on them simultaneously.
Correct.
Okay, so that's just a citation note. What's this here? Wording is awkward. That's just a language construction. I'm not concerned about that. Okay, so here we have a first pass comment from Janet, and this is in relationship to letter H, lot grading. So I'll read the whole paragraph and then we'll go back and look at the comments because it looks like we've got a couple on this paragraph. Lots shall be graded to prevent ponding of water on the lot after construction of streets, drainage, and buildings are completed. Where filling of lots for final grading is required, compactable fill and topsoil suitable for lawn or plant growth shall be used. Tree stumps, logs, or other decomposable material or building debris shall not be used as fill material. When rocks or boulders are used for fill, they shall be located only in areas of the lot where they shall not adversely affect foundations, septic systems, drainage facilities, or, this should be or, not of, or underground utilities. And they shall be so deposited that in the opinion of the commission or its authorized representative, voids likely to cause undue declivity will not be created. Okay, so this is all related to lot grading now. A comment from Janet. Suggest removing the first statement. It is contrary to low impact development where house owners should be encouraged to build rain gardens and developers should be encouraged to infiltrate runoff. So the sentence again, lots shall be graded to prevent ponding of water on the lot after construction of streets, drainage, and buildings are completed. And she is correct. Low impact development, which is a preferred development method to infiltrate stormwater, does have among its recommendations creating essentially depressed areas on a lot that can collect and infiltrate stormwater. So obviously that is ponding. But I think the point of that sentence is like the guy who was, I always feel bad for picking on Madison Avenue, but you know, we've only got a couple subdivisions going at a time. That guy who lived at the end of Madison Avenue, who's getting water into his yard from other properties,
Yeah.
and possibly into his basement, I think that's what we definitely want to avoid. I don't know, thoughts on this, on how to improve the clarity or function of that statement?
The only other thing that you could probably do is, from my experience on job, in areas that were done back in the day, in Dudley, we put in the detention pond. You have to put a detention pond, which will take where all the water is diverted, so it wouldn't go on anybody's property. And then that detention pond is the way it's built with riprap and all the other stuff, and almost like a temporary dam. So any overflow from the detention pond can't flow into a culvert that leads to a drainage system. That's the only other way you're going to be able to control runoff.
Yeah.
I will say, I don't think removing the sentence helps, because I feel like we need to add a new sentence in its place that gives guidance to this, because if we just say, oh yeah, just strike prevent ponding of water, and we're just going to start with where filling of lots for final grading is required. I don't think that makes sense either.
Yeah, I kind of agree, and I'm trying to think through this. Lots shall be graded to prevent ponding of water in such a way that would impact neighboring properties.
Correct.
The ponding of water is just that they want you to fill it, the way I read this, they want it filled higher than what the street is, so that the water from the road does not fill the front lawn of the lot.
Right, but what Janet's point is that in low impact development, that actually encourages allowing ponding on your property into like depressed areas so that it will infiltrate naturally, as opposed to running into a road or running directly into a wetland or a water course, right, with all the sediments, or running into a house. So a rain garden, which is the common thing you would see in a residential setting, it's like a shallow scooped out area, and it's intended to take like runoff from gutters or possibly from a driveway into that area, which is planted, and then the roots, the soil, act as that filter that takes out the sediments and contaminants before it hits the water table and the water system. Because the alternative is to have surface water on paved areas that runs into storm drains or other similar structures.
So what would, okay, as a person that lives in a house that none of this was done for, I get water from every direction into my property, the pools, into my basement, into everything. So at one point, the town came in and took part of my property and put some drain pipes in it. And we have a culvert and it's supposed to go to the culvert, but it does not. So my question is, what else could be done to avoid this? Because I would not want anybody to go through what I'm going through.
Yeah.
That's what you
yes,
get for living
exactly.
at the bottom of a hill.
No, yeah,
There you go.
exactly, exactly.
And I
And
know, I remember that whole area being built when I was young.
it never should have been allowed to be built in here, but that was back in
Well,
the 60s.
Well, the regulations didn't exist. But
Yeah,
the thing is, even though that where you live, if it was done right, if it was done right in today's standards, you would take a piece of land in the middle where you could, like I said, you can build what they call a detention pond where all the water gets gathered. So then after a while, it filtrates itself down or leads to a drainage system that could lead to whatever, to a brook or whatever going down. If that was built back then, you wouldn't have that problem today.
yeah. Where were you, John, back then, huh?
I was
was
just
just-
learning the business. I was
Yeah.
just learning the business.
Yeah, so
But-
how do we put that in? How do we word this so that can be made very
Well,
clear?
That's what this is all about with the
Okay.
subcommittee.
Yeah.
We're taking all our ideas from from the people that have done this and everything. We're coming up with the right verbiage. Me personally, because everybody that builds, to me, when you're building a piece, putting in a subdivision, with 10 houses, 20 houses or whatever, and we'll use Green Acres as an example, because like I said, I remember when that was built, there was 2 houses put on one septic system, okay, and
Yeah.
everybody had problems, drainage and everything, like you are at the bottom. But if a good drainage system was put in with a detention pond in between the houses or whatever, with the the rainwater coming off the house or whatever from the top, and you got it going to one area, you're controlling it.
Yeah,
You're never going to control Mother Nature
no,
but if you can control 90% of it, you wouldn't get the water going to your house. But nobody ever thought of putting in detention ponds. We call them detention ponds because you're accumulating everything to come to one area. But you want to make sure if it's going to have, say, on a good rain for 2 or 3 days, you're going to have 2,000 gallons of water coming down off the top of the hill. So what you do is you build a detention pond to accommodate at least 5,000. So it
Yeah.
never overflow, but you're controlling it. So eventually it would drain itself down. It might take a week. It's 2. So you got yourself a little fishing pond in the back of your backyard. So what? But that's the only way you're going to control stuff like that. You can take it. There are places, some places what I've worked on where the engineer built those detention ponds in, and everything was diverted to the town drainage So the water was going, right through the.
Yeah,
through
yeah.
his- So you
So
know
how
what
do
I'm
we-
saying? You're controlling it.
Yeah, no, I have actually seen those what you call retention ponds. I have seen those in other areas.
Correct.
So how do we, and they do work. I just wish they had done it here. Uh,
Yeah, I
but-
wrote I actually wrote a sentence before T wrote her sentence here. This is what my sentence says to replace the first sentence.
Okay, go ahead, B.
Water runoff shall be managed in such a way that prevents excessive erosion or
Correct.
overburden to the local streets or abutting properties. Period. Builders are encouraged to build rain gardens and or infiltration systems to prevent such situations.
Okay, so that's B's, and here's the one that I stuck in the notes. They're very similar, I think. Lots shall be graded to divert water from planned structures and to prevent runoff of water into neighboring properties or onto streets. The inclusion of rain gardens for the infiltration of runoff is encouraged in the development of the plan. I think those two sentences are very similar. Read yours
Yes.
again, B.
Water runoff shall be managed in such a way that prevents excessive erosion or overburden to the local streets or abutting properties. Builders are encouraged to build rain gardens and or infiltration systems to prevent such situations.
Can you just email that to me so that I can sort of try to mash those two together?
Yep. Don't mind my son yelling in the background.
What you just read, Brian, would pretty much, if they had it back in the mid '60s and all that, when Green Acres was done, 90% of those people wouldn't have a problem today with what they've got.
Yeah, it's only
And
me
one
that
other
has a
thing,
problem.
we're already zoning, making the lots bigger, so it gives more area for the water to percolate down in rather than, there's more leeway in the way to move, get the water out of Jane's cellar, or keep it from getting in there. If you had a 1 acre house lot, and it could be designed so you wouldn't have that problem, but what size is your lot? I don't think it's
It's not,
20,000, is it?
it's about a third of an acre.
Okay.
And Noe Pullen did a very good job of putting them all.
Oh,
in.
yes, yeah, it's a good thing I never met that man. I'm pretty much the only one that has water problems in here because I'm literally the lowest house in here, so I get.
Yeah, you
everybody.
are.
Yeah, I
You-
get
yeah, because
everybody's, yep, I get everybody
pro-
from,
Your
all sides.
Your property, Miss Salzi, is actually, I think, if I remember correctly, I could be wrong. If you were to take the road surface and you put a string or a level from the
Yeah.
middle of the road going out, your property is roughly, and I'm, like I said, I haven't been in Green Acres for a long time, but your property is pretty much almost a foot lower than
Yes.
the
I,
road.
when I say I get it from all directions, I literally do, north, south,
You
east,
do,
and west.
you do,
It comes
yeah.
in, yeah,
But
and the
if-
pipes
but
that
if-
were put in by the town helped a tiny little bit, and then we also put more around our house with stones, everything else. We did everything we possibly could.
But if that property was built up before the house was put in other words, they added 1.5 feet of fill or material, you wouldn't have had that type of problem.
John, they actually did that, and my husband actually had more brought in on top of what Poulin was doing. And over
I'm
the years, of course,
surprised.
it settles.
Yeah, well, because that was always the low end of the property with the cows and everything. That used to be that was the low end where all the water settled from the top of the hill. That was
Yeah,
always wet. That was wetlands. That was
yeah, it
considered
was wet,
wetlands.
yeah, it was wetlands, so, I mean,
Well, today it would be wetlands. Back in them day, it was a buildable lot. They didn't
Yeah.
care. Okay,
Yeah,
because
so-
but if all that was done right, if a good drainage system like a detention pond where the water
Yes.
was deferred to it before your house, you wouldn't have a problem.
so we.
I think a lot of the things we're suggesting here if that were done when Jay's house was built, she wouldn't be having this problem at all.
Right, exactly.
Exactly.
That's what we want to
So-
avoid in the
Yeah,
future.
exactly.
what we-
That's it. So that somebody else does not go through this. So we've got to get this wording, so it makes sense and it's understandable and it's not confusing. So
Not-
that
not-
somebody else doesn't go through this.
Now you're getting it. Now, what we know from our time and everything, we're trying to make it so people today, when a developer comes in, we want to make sure those people don't have the problems. We're just trying to make sure that at least with the verbiage and the wording and whatever we're doing, that this is necessary. We're not going to say you got to do it this way. Everything we do, it's recommended for the homeowner, so they don't have to worry about it 5 years or 10 years or 15 years down the road.
Yeah, so the wording is good. So
The wording is the key.
yeah,
Yeah, I
the
think
word-
I think we've got a couple of good options that can be
Okay.
combined to get us to that intent.
Okay,
And we'll see that when I have my revision come out, the next one.
Yeah, Kira,
Yes, Alvin.
before we move on beyond H, that
Mhm.
last sentence, voids likely to cause undue declivity will not be created. That's nonsense. Declivity is slope. Now, deep voids creating a slope, if you want to leave it, I would enhance the word voids. What type of void?
Right. Yes.
Either strike it or, like I said, do something with the word voids.
Let me just add a comment here because
An engineer might know that, but guy sitting on a backhoe is not going to know that.
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Hill.
he
I
wasn't.
said some, come on.
The wrong term.
Also, I don't know if, did we pass it? I was, my mind was off a little bit, but you said you read some part of a sentence where like stumps and stones and everything.
Hmm.
Me personally, when I built my place, I took my stumps and I buried them on the corner of my property because I know I ain't gonna do nothing with it. But it has to be designated. Do we have anything of that wording? So at least if down the road, say the house gets sold or something, it has to be designated where the stumps and stones and stuff were built because like it creates the voids, like it says.
Well, yeah, it seems to me based on that, John, that that can go right in there with rocks, boulders, tree stumps, logs.
Right. But well, that's what I meant. But it has to be designated on the plot plan.
Right. So and so if we're putting that, okay, so let me try and alternate here.
I'm just
I'm gonna try to edit this on the fly without typing. This is me
Okay.
verbally editing.
I'm just saying from personal experience and other people that over the years that even today, instead, it costs a lot of money to haul stumps out and stones, so a lot of times the contractor will bury the stuff in a corner, but it should be designated because it will create voids over time, not within 5 years, but at least within 15 years, you'll start seeing that area because rain, water and everything, pulls the soil down in between to fill the voids and it builds up. So now you got to bring more fill in to cover it to keep it level.
Yeah, I got you, John. So let's try this out. So let's say that we strike that sentence, and instead of that sentence, the following sentence reads this way: when rocks or boulders or tree stumps, logs, or other decomposable material are used as fill, they shall be located only in areas of the lot where they shall not adversely affect foundations, septic systems, drainage facilities, or underground utilities. And they shall be so deposited that, well, let's actually forget about that last one in a minute. Let me try it again. When rocks or boulders or tree stumps, logs, or other decomposable material are used as fill, they shall be located only in areas of the lot where they shall not adversely affect foundations, septic systems, drainage facilities, or underground utilities. And they shall be noted on the plan. And those areas shall be noted on the plan. Does that resolve all of that?
I think it's better just to leave tree stumps, logs, and other decomposable material or building debris shall not be used as fill material,
Right.
period.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Okay, because what John seems to be suggesting is the opposite, that you can use it for fill, it just can't be fill like where you're gonna have your foundation.
You don't know what they might want to do there 20 years from now, and if you, you're probably gonna have to, is that stuff decomposes, you're gonna have to put more fill in. I'd say don't only allow the decomposable materials to be used as fill.
Okay. All right, and Ray, I think you said you agree with Randy's perspective there?
I definitely agree with that. Like I said, 20 years from now, somebody might want to put a garage in that corner and, you know, they'd be up a creek when they start putting a foundation in.
Yeah, that's a good point.
That's why you gotta designate that area. So they don't have to go once so they go over there with a piece of equipment, call me in there to dig it. And I said, oh, you can't build nothing here because you got all this crap in the ground.
Well,
But
that's,
it has-
I agree with you, John. It has to be designated on the plans. So
Correct.
that there's nothing to anybody's confusion. They will know where it is and they will know that, no, we're not going to do something here.
You know,
It should be
it could
designated.
it's an area that could be 20 by 20 or something like that, you know? Because if you know where it is, the only thing you'll be able to put on top of that is a slab. You
Yeah,
know what I mean? A concrete slab, you know,
Yeah.
for whatever reason, but you can't put a foundation because with the voids, you know, but building material should not be buried. It just stumps, rocks and rocks and boulders and stuff like that are acceptable, but building material itself, you know, people throw, you know, waste building material. Well, that should go to the transfer station. And anybody buries their old, you know, maybe 30, 25 years ago, we used to do it, but now today, you know, it's not feasible. But the thing is stumps, I agree. It takes roughly 25, almost 25 years minimum for a stump to start decomposing when it's buried. Okay, and that's a proven fact. So
All right, we seem to have two trains of thought here. Do we want to vote on this, or are we gonna discuss this later and decide which one we're going with?
This is gonna have to go through this has got to go through the committee anyway, you know, through the commission anyway, so
All
we
right,
have
then I
to.
think there should be two notes. There should be one with
yeah,
John's comment, John's suggestions, and one with mine. And
Right.
let the commission decide which way they want to go. There's equipment today, they can, if you're talking about one house lot, it's one thing, it's not a lot of stumps to truck off. If you're talking
Right.
about a subdivision, they've got machines that'll come in and chip up all the trees on, I don't know where the stuff goes, comes from, that comes by my house, but there's chip material that comes by 4 trailer loads, 5 trailer loads a day. It goes down to Plainfield to be burned. And I don't see any reason to bury anything that could be, anything that's decomposing.
The state allows 3 cubic yards of tree stumps. You can't exceed that. Building debris is not allowed to be buried.
correct. That's why I said building material has to be excluded.
Just take it
Stumps.
right out.
What, how
Right.
much did you say the state allows, Alvin?
3 cubic yards of tree stumps. That's all you can bury,
That's 3 stumps,
basically.
approximately.
Yeah,
Oh, it
basically.
depends on the size of the stumps.
I would suggest that when we get to discussing this and toward the final draft, that we have either have both John's suggestion and mine, and we can take a vote if that's what it takes at that point.
That's
Whether we're gonna allow decomposable material, tree stumps and logs in particular.
You're right, because the place in Plainfield is taking wood chips and, well, that plant down here in Plainfield, I was there working on it. They take stumps and grind them. They got 2 big grinders in there that'll take stumps up to about, I think, if I remember correctly, the biggest stump they can take is 72 inches in diameter. So, because they'll take it, they grind it. But the thing is yeah, but you got to pay them for them to take it. See, in a contract, I'm playing devil's advocate here. If I'm a contractor, I'm gonna pay, so that cost is gonna be incurred back to the homeowner that's gonna be buying the property. Okay, so, we gotta create a balance here, okay, can we, like Alvin says, 3.5 by the state. But if we can designate an area and say, okay, in this corner here, they only had 12 good stumps, let them bury it. But it's gotta be designated that you can't do nothing else because of this. Over time, this is what will happen. And as long as it's designated, everybody, it's out there in the open, up front that they're there, they exist.
Yeah,
I'm
and it
just
becomes
saying,
unbuildable. It becomes unbuildable and it should
yes,
be
it's
designated.
unbuildable.
It's
Yes,
unbuildable.
correct. That's, okay, thank you, Jane. But you can't tell the homeowner or whatever, the person owns the property, you can only bury 3 stumps. If they got 10 stumps that were in the way to build a house, and I'll tell you right now, you don't want to pay the price to have stumps taken and hauling out and everything. I'm not even gonna tell you what the cost is. But the thing is if they can bury them, it's designated, done deal, can't do nothing, unbuildable.
Okay, make
I
that
think
point when we
Tara,
get to discussing that later.
well, I think Tara just did it with the sentence she wrote. Any such area shall be noted on the plan as an unbuildable area. That clarifies it, classifies it, and is clear.
Well, that, it just, again, for clarification here, that sentence modifies the sentence right before it, which right now is rocks and boulders. And it still needs to be decided whether the stumps and logs and decomposables will be a part of that. That's the part that we've said we'll take to full discussion.
Yep.
Yes.
Regardless of whether stumps and logs are going to be included as something acceptable for fill with these big rocks and boulders, the areas should be noted on the plan as an unbuildable area.
Well, that's it. And what Alvin said about the 3 cubics, that could be put in there too. No more than the 3, what the state allows, and that it is then designated as unbuildable. It clarifies all of it. It takes care of all of it. And anything else that's over that 3 cubics, that has to be taken off the property.
One other thing I've noted, Tira,
Yep.
underground utilities,
Mhm.
underground utility vaults, not underground utilities.
Okay, I can add that. Give me 2 seconds.
And
Utility,
conduit, Alvin,
what?
it has to be conduits with it because everything has to be in conduits today. No more putting
Well,
it
I
in a
mean, precisely, but an underground vault is wide open. And it is for utilities. Your conduit go to an underground vault.
Well, we'll just include them both, underground utility vaults or conduits.
Yeah, that takes care of that.
Well, I don't agree with the conduits, but that's all right. They're sealed anyway. Water's not going to get in them.
That's the hope anyway, right?
Yeah.
Water always wins, they say.
Yes, it does.
Water always finds its weakest point and it'll
Yes.
follow it.
Yes, it does.
Okay, so moving on to interior lots, and this is another one that we may or may not be able to come to full consensus here because it's getting into the stuff on shared drives. So we'll read, so section I or subsection I, interior lots. 1, interior lots shall have the same minimum lot size required in the underlying district and shall meet all the other requirements of the paragraphs above. Okay, that's easy enough. The access right-of-way shall not be included in the calculation of the lot size for an interior lot. For the purposes of these regulations, 5 lots or fewer arranged along a shared driveway shall not be considered interior lots. Now that was a statement that we had arrived at to sort of clarify that, because without saying how many of these lots can share a driveway, if they're all interior lots, we've already said that you can only have 2 flag lots, with in the zoning regulations, right? So this is trying to get to that, how we encourage people to have less pavement, right? To share more pavement as opposed to building more driveways. And still get us to where we want to be. So where's this? And this is a comment from the first go around. It was agreed that more research would be done to confirm whether this is an acceptable solution. Recommend looking at the requirements for interior lots using the NAPIC proposal as a hypothetical. Possible solutions for the problem of uncontrolled developments along shared drives limit the number of lots that may share a drive. Killingly's regs limit shared drives to 5 lots. So that's how we came up with that 5, just because we have a model from another community. I haven't heard strong preferences for more or less. Obviously, we recently had the proposal come up from Lord Thompson Manor that added a 6th, or could have been interpreted to have added a 6th lot on a shared drive. And my observation of that process is that it didn't impact the surrounding properties at all to do that, right? Nothing changed. It was just carving a piece of an existing lot and having it share that drive. So that's why I'm saying, is this number 5 really the number? Is it higher? Is it lower? And again, Santos, I think you had some thoughts on this
Yeah,
when we
I do.
discussed it the first time. So
I do. Yeah. My first comment is interior lots. Can we also put in parentheses after that? Also flag lots? Just for clarity. Either there or at the bold. Yeah, whatever, which way you want to do it. So I don't know how I feel about this term shared driveways. Just to speak my mind here. So 5 lots or fewer, as long as they have the proper road frontage of 50 feet, right? They have to have 50 feet for each house, correct? Like on
No.
Lord Thompson Manor, they had to show a access road that led onto the main road of 50 feet frontage, right? So in my mind here, and maybe Alvin can help me out, or Randy or John Lanky, you guys that have been on these boards before. If I say 5 lots, do I have 5 50-foot access points?
That isn't my interpretation.
yeah, I would say
That is
that's,
or isn't. That is
50.
or isn't.
You need 50 feet for the right of way for the 5 lots total.
Yeah.
So,
For all 5, you need 50 feet, not 5
right,
individual
not 50
ones.
per lot.
Yeah, this is where I have a problem with this thing. It's like, okay.
and explain to me the nature of your problem, because
Well, it's like,
I'm not sure I get it.
So Lord Thompson Manor, and again, not to kind of alienate people here. So we just re-subdivided his property. That was approved. And I had a problem with the shared lot definition, right? Because
Shared driveway.
the shared driveway definition, because, well, who's to say that he can't come back and do it again and again and again and again and again? Because he has, I don't know, let's just say 20 more acres up there, right? I just have a problem with that. And I think it's wrong.
So I think where we were trying to go with that is where we were going to set a limit as to how many properties could share a driveway. Now, in the case of Lord Thompson Manor, there were some who interpreted that that would be 5 lots, and some that interpreted that would be 6 lots. And I think it was demonstrated that one of the lots they were considering as sharing that driveway actually had its own separate frontage. So that is a slightly different case. Go ahead, Jane. I think you're trying to say
Well,
something.
I'm not quite understanding if it's not causing problems for the surrounding residents and they're all on the same thing, why are we limiting it?
So let me see if I can
I mean,
explain what
if it's happy, if everybody's happy with it, nobody has a problem. And of course, you know, you have to make sure that it's not gonna infringe upon the other ones there. But I mean, why are we saying no? If he's got the property for it, why are we saying no?
I just
So,
don't
so there is so much going into this, and I'm going to try to encapsulate it as best I can. Until we changed the zoning regulations, which said that properties that actually shared a lot would share a driveway, which is slightly different than what we're saying here.
Yeah,
They
Mhm.
were always prohibited, although some do exist within the town. They would have had to have been sought as variances. The reason to allow shared driveways is because you are putting down less pavement, right? You're creating less impermeable surface that creates runoff. There are a lot of people who have expressed that they think shared driveways are bad ideas. The only substantive reason that I have heard is that essentially because people don't get along.
Well,
Now,
I don't want overcrowding. I'll jump in there. I don't want my neighbor to have a shared driveway and build a multi-family house behind my house and say it's a shared driveway. I don't want that. I think
Well,
that's unreasonable.
Brian's got a good point.
right, so
Well-
we're saying, so what we've proposed so far, and we're only starting to allude to it in this section, but we've proposed so far is setting a limit on the number of houses or buildings, structures that can share a driveway. And
Right.
that proposed limit right now is 5.
Yeah.
And Randy is correct. I would say that the frontage requirement is just for the single driveway.
Yeah, that was,
Because that's your entry point. So let's imagine it as a configuration like a cul-de-sac, which I shouldn't say which I have suggested should only be treated as shared driveways because they cost the town so much to maintain if we accept them as roads. So if you're imagining that, right, as your shared driveway and the configuration, then I think that you have a situation that's not really different from a cul-de-sac that would previously have been referred to as a public road, and our DPW guys go up there and spend a half an hour plowing out the bulb.
Sometimes more, but
I don't want a cul-de-sac next to my house. You can call it whatever words or phrases you want. I just do not like this shared driveway terminology.
there,
I think it's overcrowding and allowing too many opportunities for randomness.
that, Brian, I'm gonna agree with you 75%. But the thing with shared driveways, there are some shared driveways in this town. And one of the roads is off of Wilsonville Road. I can't think of the name. There used to be the golf course there, 9-hole golf course in the
Rich
back.
Road,
What's that?
Rich Road.
Thank you.
Park, Rich Road or Park, the one right by the Four Corners of where the school used to be.
No,
Rich Road is the one where the golf course used to be. Juliet Ave is off of that.
They both were
Thank
golf
you.
courses.
but the thing is with a shared driveway on that road, there are a few shared driveways. Reason being, off the main, or you want to call it the main road, and the road, and it's a shared driveway to a point, is because in front of the houses there is a little bit of wetlands. So there was only a certain area where they could put in a decent entrance, and then they created the shared driveway going to the right, to the left, to the houses, to the lots behind it, because of what was in front of it, like a piece of wetland where you couldn't just fill it and do what you want and put its own driveway in. So there was a spot, some areas where it was feasible to put a main entrance, but Randy also said it should be at least 50 feet wide going in, and then coming off of that, if the driveway is 20 feet wide or whatever, so be it. But to have a shared driveway, I'm gonna have to agree with him with 50 feet. But then on the other hand, I agree with Brian that he doesn't want all this
I just feel like it's
housing
overcrowded.
behind them.
Yeah.
You know, so again, it's a dilemma, you know.
It is
I
a
mean,
dilemma because I don't want to tell somebody what they can do on their own property. That's where I have the problem. I'm very familiar with Lord Thompson Manor and the driveways that are in there and everything else. I just think putting a blanket out so that, no, you can't do this on your property when each situation is different. That's what bothers me.
what your opinion is noted. And I agree with that too. But we have another project that somebody somewhere here off of Ravenel Road or something and wanted to put in 5 houses and use a shared driveway and everything. And,
Yeah, I think
you know,
that's that Napic one that I refer to. And
Yes,
it was off
and he
193 somewhere.
so that was one of them. I remembered, and they came to us. He lives out in Texas or something, or someplace. He doesn't really live in town, but he's got this property. He wanted to put 5 houses on it, and with a shared driveway. And we went through the whole thing. I'd have to look back at it and everything, but we kind of agreed with it because if he's going to put a shared driveway in for the 5 houses, it had to be a minimum of 50 feet.
Right. So I actually remember that one reasonably well. So he's a snowbird.
Right.
And he's got a pretty big property with a house. I mean, it's a big property. And
Correct.
he, at the time that he brought that proposal forward, was saying, look, I love this property, but it's more than I can personally maintain. And I'd like to be able to monetize it so that I can keep the integrity of the site, but also, have the ability to sell off these pieces and not put in like a road or to serve these houses. So the solution there, he already has a long drive, was to use that long drive and separate out from his own property another couple of, 2 or 3
I think
or
it was 4 houses.
I think it was a total of 5. I think you're right.
Yeah.
And he had plenty of acreage to do that. I don't even think they were acre parcels. I think they were bigger than acre parcels.
I think
So
at least
again,
2 acres.
I think they were. So again, looking at, what's the impact here? There's no impact. And in fact, from an environmental point of view, that is much less impactful than him just slicing off the front of his property and putting in a subdivision with a road, and each of those houses now having a driveway. That's a lot more pavement.
Yes.
The arguments for shared drives are fundamentally environmental. You're reducing pavement, you're reducing amounts of runoff.
Can you scroll down? I just want to see with A, B, and C. What's the next ones after that before I go back to 5 lots? No material should be rear. Okay. So there's
and
we have
here
a
here
minimum
goes,
though, right? We have a minimum of 40,000 square feet for this new lot, right?
yeah.
So roughly an acre, right?
Mhm.
I mean, I think I'd be like more willing to say if it was a 2 acre, am I going too far? I feel like 1 acre is not that big and you can continue, I don't know.
Well,
Well, those are the arguments that we went over when we redid the zoning laws, right? The zoning regs, right? Is that, and again, the arguments for small lots are actually environmental. If you have a smaller lot, you're likely to have a smaller house, which means you're cutting less into the landscape, you're using less energy, you're creating less pavement. I mean, those are the arguments for small lots, and they're more affordable to more people. Those are the arguments for.
Yeah.
And the idea that a larger lot is more environmental only makes sense if the person buying that lot also feels the way you do about conserving the
I
landscape.
mean, I'm clearly dominating this conversation, so I feel bad because I know my opinion is,
Oh,
there's
your
other
opinion.
people's opinion,
I'll
right?
No,
argue
it's
with you for a
totally,
minute,
it's totally
Brian.
valid. It's totally valid.
Well, the
I'll
thing
argue
with that is,
with you. I'll argue with you for a minute, Brian. I think the idea of having a 50-foot right of way eliminates 4 out of 5 curb cuts. And the number of cars that are going to travel on that road you might have 2 or 3 in the course of a day for each house. You're gonna be home all day to watch that, or are you only gonna see one set of headlights leave in the morning or a car come in at night? I think I'd be more concerned if there was, I'd rather live on a combined driveway than to live on a road like I live on, where sometimes I have to wait 3 or 4 minutes before there's break enough so I can run between the cars to get across the road.
That's true.
Like a chicken.
Yep.
But the thing is
It's because
but-
Lanky's driving so fast down 131, he can't.
No,
he
I'll
no,
stick
I
it
don't
for him.
drive
He
fast.
drives very carefully when he goes by my house.
I'm
Because
sure he does.
because I have a lot of respect for Mr. Blackmer. That's how, for Randy. I have a lot of respect. I at least give him, I slow down and give him the time to walk across.
Kira,
But the
I'm
fifth,
getting older. I
but
can't walk as fast as I used to.
there you go. But the thing is that, the 50 foot should be, because remember, if you're gonna put in, if he's got a house, you gotta put in 4 lots, and I think he said 2 acres. One, you gotta meet the NDDH criteria, for well, for septic system and everything. A 1 acre, yeah, you could get away with it, but it all depends on how everything is situated, where the septic system is, where the well's gonna be, we got it, well, what is it, 100 foot from the well to the septic system in opposite direction, north, south, east, west, whatever you want to call it. But 2 acres on a shared driveway, I think that's great. It's more than a 50 foot whatever, but a 1 acre, but then when we can take and throw this out the window, and if that guy wants to build all those houses down there in off of Route 12 Riverside Drive up the gravel place, because one, he's got town water, town septic, and all the utilities. So instead of only doing 20 houses, he could put 30 houses there, okay, because he's got all the utilities. But when you go out into the sticks, like we are, some of us, yeah, I think 2 acres would be the minimum, in my opinion. I think 2 acres is, it's better than a third, dealing with a third and have all kinds of problems.
So,
opinion.
so let me
Kira.
just, go ahead, Alvin.
Still looking at D, no interior lot shall be at the rear of another interior lot. Let me read the definition in our zoning for interior or flag lot. A land parcel that lies at the end of a long driveway, not containing the minimum road frontage generally required by these regulations, but otherwise conforming to all specific area and dimensional requirements for the district in which it is located. Now, the last sentence, an interior lot may lie behind residences, buildings, or open land. So D should be struck.
Good point. Good point, Mr. Hill.
Actually, I'm not sure I agree with you. Brian, do me a favor. You also turn in the zoning regulations, if you've got your book, because you read a definition earlier, to the table of uses for RRAD.
Yep.
Because I think some of your concerns we tried to address in number 2, the A through D. And I want you to turn to the table of uses, because I do want to adjust this A. Right now, interior lot shall A only be used for single family dwellings and accessory buildings and uses permitted in a residential zone. There's a mild problem with that, which is that you could have a subdivision which is not residential, right? So I have suggested as an alternative, interior lots shall only be used for land uses under the simple zoning permit level
Yes,
of
yeah.
review,
Yeah, I saw that.
right? So that would actually take anything bigger than a duplex off
Yeah.
the table, right?
Yeah.
Because that's a special permit use in every district.
Yep.
And really, so you're talking about in the zone that you live, in the district you live, read those off, the simple permit uses.
Agriculture, farm stands, home occupation, single family dwelling, two-family dwelling, accessory apartment, accessory dwelling unit, including conversion. And that's it.
So, and I will tell you right now, you're not going to get a farm stand on an interior lot because it would
Yeah,
be
sure.
it would be off the road. So
Yeah.
really, you're already talking about this in your district.
Yep, okay, fine. I can live with that.
And in terms of the no interior lot shall be to the rear of another interior lot. Read the definition to me again, Alvin.
And an anterior lot may lie behind residences, buildings, or open land.
I think for me
So,
is, what is
yeah,
rear? What is rear? Is that left, right, behind?
Well, I think rear lots is another synonym for interior lots, unless I'm mistaken. So it's, you know,
There
you
is
could make,
no definition for rear lots.
Yeah. yeah, I think that's just a synonym, and possibly we could have been tighter with that language. However, an interior lot does lie behind something, right? And that can be a building, a lot, or whatever. But what we're saying with that D is you can't just keep stacking them up. And again, I think that's trying to address what Brian is saying, which is, you know, we don't want all these shared drives mushrooming off one another infinitely into the landscape, because that gets right back to the problem we're trying to solve in the first place, which is too much pavement, you know, too much cutting into the landscape.
I mean, I'm fine with leaving D because it supports what I'm trying to accomplish here.
Because you live on a flag lot, right?
I do
Brian?
live on a flag lot. Yes, I do. Yep.
Right. So according to this, let's say that the lot which you lie behind subdivides and you know, puts a drive through. They couldn't stack anything behind your house.
Yeah. That's why I
Right.
like D,
Yeah.
to be honest with you.
Oh, come on, you got enough property there to put all kinds of houses behind yours.
I can, but I do not want that.
But the way I mean, it's not what, the way I see it, it's not exactly what is good for you or good for me or good for, it's for the better of this community. So all these restrictions, that's,
Oh,
you know,
absolutely, Jane. Absolutely. No,
Yeah.
I totally agree with that. I just, in my opinion of like what, the way I see the town, and I think I have the right to say that, I don't want overstacking of property, right? I like it to be very woodsy and try to support that, I guess, right?
So I left a little note to myself up here somewhere to try to map out some potential scenarios that would be allowable under this. And I think Janet had started to do that, and she's been away. But when she comes back, maybe I'll sit down with her, because it could be that there is something hidden in here which is allowing something that we don't intend. So before we make a final decision on this, I want to see where the pitfalls might be. But I can tell you that when we put these A through D in here, it was precisely to make shared driveways feasible while not making them detrimental.
well, Tara, we're up in the interior lots, the purpose of the regulations, 5 lots or fewer arranged along a shared driveway. How long has that been in effect?
It's not in effect at all. This is proposed in this
Okay.
revision. Right now in the subdivision regulations, shared driveways are not allowed. That's why this is such a thorny one. We're not really modifying something that has existed.
Okay.
We're saying this is this is a best practice that we are proposing, and whether it makes it through the commission in the end remains an open question. From a planning point of view, I can tell you that it is a best practice. But in
This
the
is-
end, it's got to pass through 10 members of the commission And I am
Right.
not one of them. I don't get a vote. All I can do is make recommendations.
It's
Okay.
just try to, like you just said too, what we're trying to do is just try to bring the sub regs in alignment with the regs, so to speak.
And did the
That's-
five
that's
lot,
certainly
did
part of it.
the 5 lots or fewer falls in that line area, right?
I
I'm
would
not
say
sure.
so.
I'm
Go
not
ahead,
sure I
Tara. I'm
understood your
sorry.
question, Jane.
Well, I mean, the 5 lots is falling within those guidelines, correct?
Yes, yes. Well, that's what we're proposing. I mean, we could set that level anywhere. 5 seems to be what we've settled on, partly because that's, there are other communities locally, Killingly notably, where that is a limit that they set on shared drives. Could go up, could go down.
And of course, too, I mean, it also depends obviously on the lot size, as we were talking. So right now, the 5 lots is a feasible number.
Right, so 5 lots, let's say that all of the lots were at the acre minimum.
Yep,
At 5 lots, that would mean you'd have at least a 5-acre parcel, but it would also need another set of land that was open space attached to that, because if it's a subdivision of 4 lots or more, there's an open space requirement. So 5 acres is 80% of what? Oh, my math skills are not good enough. Where's my calculator?
What was the question? I'm sorry, I was reading something.
So if we went to
20.
4 lots on that driveway, that would eliminate the open space.
I think the threshold for requiring open space is 4 lots. So anything of 4 lots or above, but we're talking about a 5 lot minimum here, so 5.
That one property already has a house on it with the long driveway, and he wants to put 4 houses on that driveway, Ray. You know, and I think it was 2 acres. So you're gonna have 4 extra houses plus the house that's existing on that long driveway. But like Randy said, it has to be that it would become a shared driveway, and it would have to be at least a minimum of 50 feet to make it a shared driveway.
Right, and just again, if reference what the minimum size of the original parcel would have to be.
Right.
The minimum size of the original
Minimum.
parcel to have a 5 lot subdivision with acre minimums would be 6 1/4 acres. So you'd have 5 acres of, and this is again, if everything's at the minimum, you'd have 5-acre lots, and then you'd have 1 1/4 acres that would have to be permanently designated as open space, and you couldn't build in that open space.
Kara, I hate to ask you to repeat that again, but please repeat that again.
That's okay. That's okay.
My brain is getting tired.
I know, and we're almost done. We'll cut it after this. We won't go on to J because that's another
Okay,
new topic.
Yeah, yeah.
And we're coming up on 9 anyway.
Yeah,
So in order to have a 5 lot subdivision, whether it's interior lots or not, by the way, but we're talking about interior lots. In order to have a 5 lot subdivision, because there is an open space requirement of 20% for any parcel which is subdivided into 4 lots or more, those 5-acre lots would also have to have included in the master parcel 1 1/4 acres of open space, which could never be built upon.
okay.
Right, so a subdivision on a 5-acre parcel, master parcel, 1 lot that's 5 acres, you couldn't just divide it into 5-acre house lots, because 20% of that would need to be designated as open space if what you're proposing is 4 lots or more. So a 5-acre parcel couldn't actually have more than 4 lots on it because there wouldn't be enough land to give you the open space.
That's correct, because that's how the math works out.
Okay, all right, thank you. I think I got it this time.
Oh, it's super hard to visualize when you don't have like a plot in front of you, for sure.
But yeah, and that's exactly, I mean, I'm literally drawing a plot.
Yeah.
Okay, so. So what I'm seeing with this is that minimum lake acreage to put the divisions in. What happens if somebody's got a whole lot of acreage, but then are we still going to restrict him?
Well, so again, this item is just for interior lots, right? So we're just talking about stuff on shared driveways.
Mhm.
If you've got a giant parcel that you want to subdivide as a developer, there are going to be multiple ways that you could configure it.
Okay,
Some
okay,
of those
okay.
configurations could include shared driveways. Some of those configurations could include private roads where the driveways are not shared, but the homeowners association is responsible for the maintenance. And some
Okay.
of those configurations could include publicly accepted streets. And each one of those possibilities is going to have different configurations possible within them.
Okay, yep, that's
So-
where I was heading. I thank you.
The good point on that, Tara, is Jane, if you look at, what's his name, LaValle's place in here in Quinnebog there, okay?
Yep.
It's gonna be, cause it'll be easy for the town once it gets, he created what we call a horseshoe road or
Yep,
whatever, where all the houses are tied into it. So it's a complete road all the way around. It starts at A, comes back over here on the other end to B, what we call B, back on 197. So it's a complete road where
Called a
you
U-shape, John.
what's that U shape? Okay, thank you. I call it horseshoe.
I call it
U-shape,
horseshoe
whatever.
too. Yeah,
Right,
I live
whatever.
on a horseshoe.
Oh, no comment. But the thing is, because that, like Green Acres, because the way it was built, the road was built and everything, it became that. So you have what you call an egress. One end it could be, you got egress and ingress on both sides, okay?
Yep.
Where like a cul-de-sac, your egress and ingress is one point. You
Yes.
go up
Yep.
and you do a U and you
Yep.
come back out the same way you can. That's where we're having a problem. Some of us are having a problem. Do we want to make it a town road, let the town accept it and we
Okay.
accept the response? You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
Or should
Yep.
let whoever develop it create a homeowners association like they used to do with the condos. You had to have a homeowner that you had people come in and plow it. The town wouldn't come in and do it.
It would be,
Okay.
they would have, it'd be self-maintained, not the town.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. See, but that's something we have to, that's what we're going through is to make sure that, why some people in the town say, well, why do we have to accept that burden when it's not a complete road from one end to the other end?
Okay,
Like
yep.
a U shape or horse shape, your egress and ingress is one point. So is that really a complete road?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
got that. Thank you for that. Yes, I do, because I mean, obviously I know that it's 1 point in and 1 point out.
Correct.
And the people that live on that road, and I get it. I get the confliction and sometimes the confusion of it. So thank you for that, John.
See, a lot of people, you're right, and like I said, this is something I've done all my life. I was taught this stuff. I was shown this, talked to a lot of engineers and, worked with them and everything, how roads would, the things were being developed. And, and if a lot of people don't see that. So if we can get people to be educated and understand, we just do regulations. We don't have nothing to do with ordinances, all that other stuff. That's town stuff. But what we do is regulate to help the person that's going to be a homeowner or a landowner, that at least they could be treated fairly. They're not going to be, well, tough bananas. No, I don't really like, personally, I don't like living on a cul-de-sac because it does create problems. But
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
my opinion.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we've done good work. It's 1 minute to 9, so we'll break here. And I will get the latest revision out. Fingers crossed I can do it tomorrow. I'm so in the weeds at the office that I've been a little behind, but I usually manage to get this stuff done the next day. And then we'll get the revision. So the next meeting, I believe, is currently scheduled for next Wednesday, which I think makes it easier for Ray and also for Joe. And we will pick up with letter J in this section, street design and construction. And hey, we're keeping a good pace. I appreciate you guys putting this extra time in for sure.
Hey, what's the meeting after that? Because I'm not here next Wednesday. I am away. So when is the next one after that?
So that's the one that I sent a new doodle poll out.
Okay.
Because when we, I know the doodles, when we,
23rd.
well, the 23rd is next week. Brian's asking for the one after that.
That would be March 2nd, right?
We currently have it on the Thursday of that week, which I believe is the 3rd. But I
Yes.
sent another doodle poll out because we just disbanded the branding subcommittee. We rolled it back into EDC, which means that first Wednesday is now available. However, nobody has replied in the new doodle poll. So right now, everybody's preference, as far as I know, is still the Thursday.
I'm
So
okay with March 2nd and 3rd. Do 2 nights in a row.
Oh, John.
Well, no, it's
bite
not.
your
It's
tongue.
not going to be. It's not going to be 2 nights in a row. It's going to be either or.
What
And-
is it with everybody? I got all kinds of time. I can do it.
Yeah. You do maybe.
Doodle.
So
Oh,
if
yeah.
no,
All right, I see it now.
Right
Okay.
here, the second would be better for me.
yeah, I know. So, but if nobody else replies in that poll, I've got no basis of comparison for what's better
You
for the
got,
group.
you got
Oh, I
my
understand.
vote for March 2nd.
All right, I just went on the doodle pool and I'm doodling right now for you.
You ain't
Thank-
gonna get me to do the doodle pool. Tara
That's-
knows that. Here you go.
That's okay.
March
That's
2nd.
okay. Doodle away, Brian. Okay, Mr. Chairman, would you like to call for a motion?
I'm not going to call for a motion. I'm going to just rule the meeting as adjourned.
I'll second that.
Excellent.
Tara,
Good
can-
night.
Tara, can you stay on a minute?
Is that Gloria? Yes, I can.
Yes. Okay, thanks.
All right, good night, everyone.
Good night,
Good
everybody.
night.
Gloria, while you're still